Let's get it started. Let's get it started. We are who we are told we should be. But do we have to be? Yee. That's heavy. Yee. That's heavy. Hey, welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. With your host, it's me, Hanna Nuss. That's right. It's so funny to say that. I know early on I had floated around with how we would even start, how I would intro myself. I know that I lost my name in there for a little bit, just purely out of fear for maybe losing my job for doing this work, which inevitably the name didn't matter. But I know that I floated around a lot in the ownership of this work because it was scary. It still is scary every day. I was talking to a mom at school pickup, and they had asked me, "Oh, I heard that you do a blog." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do a blog and a podcast." And she was like, "Oh, wow, what is it?" And I'm like hesitant, right? Because, dude, nobody wants to be that person in their town. Like, I'm pretty sure, right? And there's a difference between writing and podcasting, and I can't quite explain what it is, but here's how I see it. And this is the reason that I want to write a book. Books, blogs, those are open for interpretation. You could take them 20 different ways. You could pull one sentence out, right? And it could be meaningful to you. It's just open. You can read it a million different ways. And I find that so fascinating that like one person could get it and they could just run off on this direction and think that this is what you created, and it could be the exact opposite. Like, I find that so amazing. Anyways, podcasting is a little bit different because it's like straight into your soul. Like, here are the decisions that we made. Here is where we're drawing the line in the sand. And this is what it is. Here is my soul. Here is the heart into all the work that I'm doing. So I don't often share it, right? Because you could just think I was completely insane. But you know what? Maybe I am. And maybe we need a little bit more of that craziness, right? For yourself, for your future. And so I shared it. Like, yep. And then eventually she asked what the name was. And so I don't know. She could be listening right now. But it is. It's so real. It's so vulnerable. It's so true. And real time, at least for me, mine is very real time. And it just is like, I've given you every single reason to make up your mind as to whether or not I'm your thing. Here are all the reasons. Here are 300 episodes of reasons of why you like me or hate me. You decide. And that's scary, right? But it's also inspiring. It also allows me to know where I stand and who fits and who doesn't. I mean, it has allowed me to show up as the true me versus trying to fit every single hole that existed. Like, oh no, I really want to appeal to this community. I really want to appeal. Like, no, I'm this person, right? This has been my experience. These are the things that I'm about now. This is my opinion. This is where I stand. I got a certain amount of things wrong. I can tell you right now that I'm pretty sure I did about a week and a half long stint about why I was choosing to switch to a Google phone. Like, I went a little bit crazy. And I was probably wrong, especially considering they actually discontinued making this version of the phone because it was so terrible, right? But like, that's exactly where I stood. That was my opinion in real time. That's what was important to me. That's what I wanted to be about. And I still do. I'm still not sure next time phone purchase choices come around where I'll stand. Okay? You should know this. But like, that's what's so cool. That's what's so amazing about just deciding that this is who you're going to be. This is how you're going to show up. And some of my opinions are completely off. Some of my opinions probably make people really mad, but it's just my truth and the way that I'm working through the world. So here we all are. Here we all sit. I can't help but be this person. This is who I am now. This feels so much better than anything I've ever been before. That's how you know. Okay, so that's probably my great thing. Just continuing those conversations when people ask, because most of the time, I think I had to get over this fear that people were coming at it from a place of making fun of me, and they definitely still sometimes are. Sometimes there isn't a lot of authenticity in it. Most of the times it's just like, I kind of just want to know why you think you can be this person. And that's fine too. Like, those questions still deserve to be answered. You can go ahead and listen to all the million reasons why I'm doing this, why I wanted and needed desperately to save myself. Like, you can hear all of that. And then you can just decide, is this for you? Is this the kind of thing that you want to listen to? Is this the kind of thing that you want to be about? Do you want more for your life? Do you actually want to decide your life? Or has it all been decided for you? Do you want to keep showing up here? Or do you want a hand out? Do you want a little bit of guidance? Do you want someone going through it with you? Right? Like, that's what this is. That's what this became. I don't know that I went in with that intention. I really went in with the intention that I was going to be a motivational speaker, that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't realize that talking through my own struggles because it couldn't just like happen. Hanna showed up, started motivating. Like, I wanted to be real. Here's the real pursuit of what you want. And I also realized early on that the things that I wanted were just ridiculous. Like, no one in their right mind is sitting in Iowa going, think it's probably a good business move here to start a podcast, to be a full-time writer. Like, I think that's a really good business plan, considering where I sit. And then I'm going to talk about people chasing their dreams. And like, it didn't have to make sense with where I was sitting. It had to make sense with what I wanted and things that I have always been obsessed with. And that's it. And go. And press go. However you feel that fits. And that's where I ended up. Like, people are going to give you a million reasons to not do something. And maybe today you could just decide that you're going to do something for yourself. Maybe today you're going to just decide that nobody else's terms matter as much as yours do. And maybe today you just take a step forward. Yeah, maybe today you do. Maybe. And maybe today you don't. But maybe today you start questioning it. And maybe today you start showing up and you just start kind of just looking with a squinted eye at everything like, what did I decide on? So I don't even think that I introed the great thing because I really don't know that that was a great thing. Okay, so the great thing there was just having the conversation. It gets easier and easier as I force myself to have it. And I didn't feel like I was coming from a place of, oh, okay, yeah, I'll tell you about it. Cool. You were also just making fun of me. Like I was really just like, here's what I do. Here's what it is. And it felt a lot better than the last time that I was questioned. So we're growing. That's my great thing. Go ahead and take time to recognize yourself for your great thing. If you want to read more about where greatness grounding started, you can head over to hannanuss.com. That's where you'll find everything about greatness grounding and the roots of that daily practice that we do here on the Death of the Dream. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and dive in all the way in. Today's bonus episode is like #goals. I still can't believe the level of guests that I'm getting for these bonus series. I'm so excited that they're coming here to bless all of us with their gifts, with their knowledge, with their insight into topics. So just so you know, when I'm building out the bonus episodes are built on topics that I've heard from my audience that they're interested. So if you've ever DM'd me and said like that really resonated, I'm going to try to bring on a guest who can speak to that a little bit further than I can, that can expand our mindsets in that place. Or I've had a deep experience and I want to continue growing in that space to better my understanding of what I'm even talking about. And so we talked about identity, and I was just super challenged by the other side of this. Like, I could understand now that my identity is not in my job, is not in my hobbies, is not in any of those things. What I was having a hard time understanding was that it's also not in my family. And I would just keep telling myself like, no, I'm a mom. That is my identity. No, I'm a wife. That is my identity. These are things that I identify with. And I was having such a hard time removing that I started hoping that I might find someone who could speak to that. And like the stars freaking aligned, people. I can't even tell you how I found today's guest. I can. She reached out to me in a book writing class that we were in together. And she wanted to just talk about her experience or what she was going to eventually write her book on. And I had read her story and I messaged her back and I'm like, can you speak to the challenges that you had with your identity related to this? Because I'm still struggling with this idea that it's not related to anything that you can lose. Like, I'm struggling. I so fiercely understand that it is not my job. I definitely had trouble in recovering from that idea, in how heavily I had wrapped myself in the security of my job being my identity, right? It was just easier. It was so much easier to talk about that than find who I was actually meant to be in this world. Like, it's easier. Trust. And that's not to say that your 9 to 5 is not a perfect example of who you're meant to show up as in this world. That's just to say, I didn't want, like, that just wasn't who I was, right? I existed. After that ended, I was still here. And so it's not my identity. And then when I started to think about how I challenged that idea on the other side, like, no, I'm a mom. No, I'm a mom. Like, right? But also, sadly, removable. And then I think that you start to challenge this idea. You start to realize that sometimes the trauma isn't so much the loss of a person as much as it is the loss of yourself, right? And so maybe the depression doesn't come from, and maybe it just goes even deeper because you also lost an entire piece of yourself. And not that you're ever going to lose that, but maybe if we remove our identity from that, it doesn't cut so deep. And I don't know. I'm still challenged, but I am hopeful that this episode today is going to shed some light on how you do that, how you recover from a loss like that, how you take this. I think Lindsay's such a great example of that. So I'm pumped about that. But here's where my identity was challenged really early on. I knew for most of my life that I was set here to do what we're all set here to do: pay bills and die. And so that really became my focus. That became what I was told I was supposed to do. That was it, pretty much. Do that. Figure out how to do that a little bit better than the person before you. And so we were just passing on this kind of generational curse of middle classedness. And it's not like we weren't passing on a fine life. It's not like it wasn't good. Like, it was still good. And honestly, if you're looking around at the world as a whole, like, it's amazing to be in this place, to be just fine. A lot of people are just striving to even get to a fine place. So what am I bitching about? Boo-hoo, Hanna. Poor you. Your life's not great. But you know what? What a blessing, right? And so that's where I got. I got to this place where everybody had told me to get. Hanna, you should do this. Hanna, you should go to school. Hanna, you should get the good job. Hanna, you should have the nice car. Hanna, you should just work to make sure that you make those payments. Hanna, this is who you should strive to be. And so I got there. And then I'm just looking around like, okay. Huh. Cool. What now? And that what now place is what kept me forever swimming in anxiety. What now? And for most people, I guess you just go, well, retire, save. Live in this mindset that this is forever limited and start preparing for the inevitable, which is your life taking a drastic turn for terrible. Start planning for it. Have a game plan. And it's not as if I'm sitting here saying don't have a game plan. I'm just saying, like, that's it. That's what we're preparing for. That's what our life is supposed to be spent planning, prepping, doing. That's it. I can't do that. Right? And so then people would, try to help me out. Maybe you should do a grateful practice. Maybe you should really appreciate this life that you have, right? Like, you have a house, you have vehicles, you have a beautiful family, you have a healthy family. And I'm just like, I'm not grateful. I'm not grateful. I'm so grateful that I have those things. But this is not enough. And then they'd come back and be like, really? Like, you've actually done some things. You should really be happy. You should really be thankful. And all the while I'm just sitting here thinking, like, why didn't I think that I was enough? Why did I think that I should come back here, like to this place where I just pay bills and die. Like I used to think that I was going to escape that. I used to look out and see people who lived in the world outside of that. And I used to think like, how do I get there? How do I become that person? And yet I still ended up here. Right back here, right where I started, right where I never wanted to be. Right? And that isn't like a physical location. That's like right in this place where I just paid bills and died. And the thought of becoming that person forever suffocated me. The thought of showing up as her took my breath away. Showing up as her for the rest of my life was never going to be enough. I was just spinning. I was grasping at anything that was going to give me meaning, right? And then I just start to go down this like beautiful, terrible self-work path of like, how do you even find yourself? How do you even have dreams? I don't know. The dreams I was told to have, the life I was told to be grateful for, isn't the one I necessarily want, isn't the one that I decided. I was told to be these things. I was told to be right where I am now. Right? And that's not like against anyone. That's just the norm. That's just the reality. That's accepting life and bowing down to it. And that's where I was. Like, okay, got the job, got the degree, got the second degree, got promised that this was going to make a difference, that this was going to change my family tree, this was going to do it. And I remember being so proud to check that next box off after I had that degree on my daughter's whatever it was that I was filling out. Parents, master's degree or higher. Because I knew that that was going to change something for them, that people would see that and they would equate value in my child who didn't even have a reason, right? But like, how often do we look to those check boxes to decide if that person is worthy or not? You know why I had to go get that freaking education? So that checkbox gave my daughters an advancement in life. Do you know how fucked up that is? Like, I knew that there were checkboxes early on that were filled out for me as a kindergartner. And that because I didn't have those checkboxes, someone spoke impossibility into my dreams at 7. And so I started building this life around checkboxes for the kids so they weren't held back from the same things that held me back. And then I just started living in this world of checkboxes. Like, okay, well, now we get the next job. Well, now we make the more amount of money. Well, now we have this, and eventually we'll build the life that we didn't get to live, and we'll just live through those kids. That will be enough. Let's prepare them for this world. Let's prepare them better than we were prepared. Let's go there. Let's do that work. Because eventually, they'll pay us back, right? Eventually, all those checkboxes will matter to them too. And there's no doubt in my mind that they matter. They matter so much to the trajectory that they're going to be given. Right? And I'm so grateful that we went down that path. But here's what I also knew. I had willingly just signed up to live a life checking boxes for my children so that they could live a life. And I had willingly gave up on my own. And I knew that I was still here. That I still mattered, that I still had more to do. And I also knew, right? And this was a turning point. I also knew that I was telling my girls every night that their job is to change the world, that someday they're going to change the world. And they were telling me that. And when my 4-year-old, 3 at the time, said it back to me, I realized there was nothing I was doing to change any world other than theirs. That was the only focus. And like, how can I show them? How can I grow them past this moment more than just check boxes? Like, I could start walking the freaking path. I could start changing my own life and not accepting the same things for myself that everyone did before me. Did I want more? Was my life worth more? Because showing them that all they have to do is get these check boxes for their own children, that is their goal in life, would just create another generation of people who do that, who just pass the buck, who just say, okay, now you go do, right? And every time we're just going to be getting like one teeny tiny little stair step above where the last generation was. And while that's great, that wasn't enough, and that wasn't the life that I had planned. But my life had went so drastically a different way than I had envisioned that I was just like, this is how this works. You got it wrong. Remember at 7 when you figured out that someone else was going to tell you what your dreams were supposed to be? You're still waiting. No one's coming. No one's coming for me. No one was telling me anymore. And I was just looking around like, wait a second. Isn't someone going to come and tell me that this isn't a good idea? And no one does. Like, what is it that you want to do? Yeah, the scary things. Yeah, the insane things. Like starting a podcast, in your spare bedroom, in the middle of an entire population of people who don't listen to podcasts, and then build a podcast for that population of people who don't even know what that is yet. Right? Because I'm not writing for the person who's already been saved. I'm writing for the person who I was a year ago. And I'm hoping for all of us that we get it right. It will be a drastic disappointment someday if we don't get anywhere. Right? But like, we've already gotten a million steps ahead of where we were. And the biggest part, the most important part, is that I stopped letting people tell me who I was supposed to be. And I started showing up in the world and telling the world who I was. And that's a big shift, especially if you're coming from a place like mine where you just knew. You knew from the time you were born, from the time that you started listening, right? You just knew that this is where you would be someday. You'd be struggling to be fine. You'd be fine only to be run off a cliff and not be fine. And then just struggle and strive for fine again and then be fine for a little bit, right? Just find that flat line. And then fall again, and it would be an endless cycle. And when you're taught that that's who you get to be, it's really hard to question, right? And then that's all you see. And then eventually, you just start showing up as grateful because it's really not all that bad. But I promise you, not knowing who you are or what you want is bad. Not having an identity tied to anything true to you is bad. And I know that you want more. I know that you do. I know that that's hard to ask for, considering where we all come from. But you can ask for it. And you can just start taking steps today. Make sure you check out tonight's bonus episode. Seriously, you do not want to miss it. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world. Goodbye to the book. Goodbye, YouTube.